Hello guys, you're very welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 19, and today we're speaking about feeling sick and nostalgic. So I'd like to preface this episode by saying that the original intention of the podcast was to focus on many different topics in these episodes in order to present some useful vocabulary in a natural way. In some of the earlier episodes, I focused on politics in the form of the Irish presidential campaign, and another episode was based on Halloween. This was kind of the idea at the beginning of the podcast. And then some sessions have been more directly about vocabulary, certain idiomatic or common expressions, and even the odd grammar explanation. So that's kind of been the idea, to move between different topics and use a lot of related vocabulary and grammar structures when discussing those topics, which I hope will help you on your language learning journey. But every now and then, I'll probably record one of these episodes, okay, which is more off the cuff, improvised as it were. And the reason this one is improvised is because I'm feeling under the weather. Okay, I'm feeling quite terrible this week. I'm not feeling my best at all. In short, I have a throat infection, so I'm on antibiotics now. I had a sore throat to begin with, followed by a fever a couple of days ago, coupled with shivers and chills, with headaches and swollen glands in my throat. So yeah, just a crap week. Just a crap week all around. But look, it's getting better. It's getting better. So yeah, just generally unwell. And then I lost my voice. I couldn't speak at all for a day, which was probably a gift for those around me. So I thought, hey, look, it's good to talk about those things too. You know, there's some interesting vocabulary when we speak about health. However, I don't want to talk too much about that today. In reality, I want to talk about something else, which is what we do when we're sick. Okay, the first two things I always notice when I'm sick. One, I'm very irritable. Like I'm so irritable. I get frustrated easily. I can lose my cool a little bit quicker than usual. Not that I say anything to anyone, but internally, I feel really frustrated when small things are not right. Or just, if I open the door and it's raining and I think, oh no, why me? Because now I have to make the journey from the house to the car in the rain and I already feel miserable. It's just added stress. So, that feeling of just general irritability. And I wonder if it's just your body wanting to produce more adrenaline in the system, a form of that fight, flight, or freeze response. So maybe when we're sick, our body is just trying to produce that adrenaline to get through the day. Maybe irritability might be the first expression of it. Maybe it creates a bit of energy through this tension that keeps you moving. I don't know. And I thought about this a lot. I was tempted to Google it to see if that's a real thing. And then I stopped myself because I kind of missed, that time. Or I kind of missed that time in general, those days before Google, when you could just have a thought and you didn't have to go online either to confirm it or disprove it or debunk it. So that's the first thing I notice, that I'm quite irritable when I'm sick. And the second thing I notice is that I'm also really, really grateful. I have moments when I'm so grateful. I feel terrible, but because I'm not really seriously sick, I just have an infection or a short-term illness. When I have these few days of sickness, I always think how bloody lucky I am. I'm grateful for the general good health that I have. It's something I think about a lot. It can't be or it shouldn't be taken for granted. There are people who are in terrible situations, and it's just a gift to have good health. So I try to remind myself that anytime I have a small bout of sickness, a period of illness, because it really is so incapacitating when you feel really sick. You can't move, you can't think straight, you can't get any clarity. It's impossible to organize your day and your responsibilities. So if it feels like that for a week, I can only imagine what having a long-term illness is like and the mental fortitude required to survive it or to keep going, day by day. Okay, anyway, those are the first two things I always think about when I'm sick. The fact that I'm irritable, and then the other side of the coin, which is filled with gratitude that, in general, touch wood, health is just a very good gift. But to be honest with you, I wanted to speak about something related but unrelated. Something I had completely forgotten about until a wave of nostalgia hit me. I started thinking about the things I do, or more specifically, used to do when I was sick as a kid. So I think I have to go into the past, first of all, to explain this. When I was a kid, I used to watch movies. I used to love movies. I was a real film buff, a movie buff. I watched lots and lots of movies and rewatched lots and lots of films. And I think one channel on television that was really formative for me was TCM, Turner Classic Movies. It was an interesting channel because I think it started in the mid-90s and it had films from as far back as the 1920s and 30s all the way up to the mid-80s. During the day, there were some lighter films, TV movies, as we'd call them. And then in the evening, it would show classic movies from the past. So you might watch Ben-Hur, for example, or Singing in the Rain, or The Three Musketeers. I remember those films really well to this day. My dad used to watch them. When he came home from work, he'd put them on. And on a day when I was sick, I'd usually stay up a little bit later, maybe because I'd slept during the day, and I'd have this free pass to stay up past my bedtime, as if you were getting permission to be in the grown-up world for a couple of hours to watch a film, to stay up late, to see something you weren't usually allowed to watch. I used to love that. And as I got older, there was another channel I really liked, Film 4, which is essentially a film channel from the Channel 4 Television Corporation. And it's a great resource. Actually, if you're looking to improve your comprehension or your vocabulary, I always recommend watching series because it's something you can substitute into your daily routine. If you watch a series in your native language, you can just find a series in English that occupies the same time in your day. And if your level is a bit lower, just watch less. Watch 10 minutes instead of half an hour or an hour. Keep it fun. Keep it interesting. It's about that contact time with the language. That's what's important. It's not about studying in the academic way. It's about just creating that contact time with the language every day. Real life language. But yeah, if you have something like NordVPN where you can change your IP address, I highly recommend going to the Channel 4 player, which is full of series, films, and box sets. And I believe Film 4 is included in that. I'll have to check, but in any case, Film 4 is the other channel, and I really loved it. So I watched TCM and Film 4 when I was kind of in my formative years. Now, the movies on Film 4, I probably shouldn't have been watching them because they were a little bit more advanced for me. Maybe as a 10-year-old, these films were like over 15s, and yeah, I probably just shouldn't have been watching them. But look, that's a part of life. You got to do what you got to do. So why am I speaking about this? TCM, Turner Classic Movies, and Film 4. Because this week, when I was sick, I watched 2 movies on Film 4. I put on the TV. I haven't done that in a long time. I watched 2 movies on Film 4, 2 movies I'd seen before, but hadn't seen in about 15 to 25 years. The first was Carlito's Way, a classic film directed by Brian De Palma, starring Al Pacino and Sean Penn from 1993. A guy gets out of prison and tries to go straight. He tries to lead a life outside of crime, and it's just a classic. It's so good. And the second one I watched was Rob Reiner's A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise, Demi Moore, and Jack Nicholson. Just amazing as well. Fantastic. And while I was watching those two movies, I realized I didn't have my phone near me at all. There were ad breaks, and I'd forgotten about ad breaks, but they exist still on television. Every time the ads started, the commercial break, I thought to myself, all right, okay, I can go to the toilet, or I can make a cup of tea, or I can check my emails if I need to. But then when the film started again, I dropped my phone. I immediately got back into the movie, completely absorbed 100%. The films had that quality, where they weren't trying to attract your attention all the time. And that's something I feel that new movies and series don't have. It's like they need to attract your attention, just like your phone is. But those films don't try and do that, or they didn't try and do that. They were slow in moments because they were balancing the drama and the tension with longer scenes. And Carlito's Way is full of scenes where the tension just builds and builds. It's great. And A Few Good Men, of course, just keeps building and building up to the dramatic final scene. And yeah, I just had that feeling, that kind of nostalgia, that flashback to when I was a kid watching a film and when the ad breaks used to arrive. In our house, there were so many of us, so you'd have to run to the bathroom, try to be first so you could get back and steal a better seat, to watch the rest of the film or the next part of the film. Or you might discuss the movie at the break. What do you think's going to happen? Why did this person do that? How's it going to end? You'd have a little discussion about the plot, about where it's going, and try to predict the ending. You had that 4-minute window where the ads were on to discuss the movie. And when you watch those older movies, there's a much more considered approach to the audience experience. When you're watching them, you don't want to double screen, especially with the ad breaks. I think I have a newfound appreciation for standard commercial breaks because you know what they are. You can leave the room, you can come back. I didn't feel the need to pause. I just wanted to watch the film and be absorbed in it. Anyway, that was kind of my thought of the week. I had a flashback to what it was like being sick as a child. Film in general is just such a good way to escape when you feel that way, because you're focusing completely on a story. It's complete escapism, and trying to be absorbed in that film, it's just very, I don't know, it's just a great escape. And what about you? Do you have a favorite film you revisit when you're feeling unwell? Put it in the comments if you'd like to. Let me know. Maybe it's a film I haven't seen, or maybe it's in another language so I can practice some of my own language learning skills. Okay, guys, I wish you a fantastic week. Take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Ciao. Ciao.